So today we're going to dive into one of the world's most ancient and, believe it or not, unbroken cultural traditions. We're talking about the very foundations of Indian thought, a legacy that's thousands of years in the making. Let's get right into it.
You know, this ancient saying, it just perfectly sums up what we're talking about today. It points to a culture that prized one thing above pretty much everything else: knowledge. And not just, memorizing facts, but a really deep, life-changing understanding of the world and our place in it. So, who were the people at the heart of all this? Well, they were known as rishis, or seekers. Now, these weren't just priests or scholars. You can almost think of them as spiritual scientists, folks who dedicated their entire lives to asking the biggest questions you can possibly imagine. Okay, so to get our heads around this huge, sprawling tradition, we're going to use one simple but powerful metaphor: an ancient tree. We're going to start by digging down into its oldest roots, then we'll trace the growth of its central trunk, and finally, we'll explore the incredible diversity of all its branches.
All right, let's start where it all begins. We're going right down to the roots, to the foundational texts of this entire cultural tree, the ancient Vedas.
I mean, the name itself tells you everything you need to know. Veda comes from the Sanskrit word vid, and that means knowledge. So these aren't just religious books, they are quite literally books of knowledge. We're talking collections of thousands of poetic hymns, making them some of the oldest surviving texts on the entire planet.
And there are four main collections. You've got the Rig Veda, which is the oldest and biggest, full of all these amazing hymns. Then you have the Yajur, Sama, and Atharva Vedas, and each one has its own unique focus. From rituals to melodies, all together they make up this immense body of work.
But here's the part that just blows my mind. Before any of this was ever written down, these thousands of hymns were passed on purely by word of mouth, from teacher to student, for maybe 2,000 or 3,000 years. That's 100, maybe even 200 generations, keeping all this knowledge alive, almost perfectly, just through memory. It's an absolutely incredible feat of the human mind.
And this isn't just some dusty old history, right? This is a living tradition. It's so unique and has been so perfectly preserved that in 2008, UNESCO actually called Vedic chanting a masterpiece of our shared human heritage. It's amazing to think that the sound of these chants today is the exact same sound you would have heard thousands of years ago.
Okay, so beyond the beautiful chanting, what's the big idea here? Well, it's captured perfectly in this one line from the Rig Veda. The core idea is that behind all the crazy diversity of the world, all the different gods, all the forces of nature, there is one single unifying reality, one existence with many names. And that one idea, it's the seed for everything that's going to come next.
All right, so from those roots, we're now moving up to the trunk of our tree. As the tradition evolved, the focus started to shift away from just hymns of praise and toward a much deeper, philosophical search for that one underlying reality. And this new era is captured in a set of texts called the Upanishads.
You can really see the Upanishads as a natural evolution. It's like a philosophical deepening of those early Vedic seeds. The seekers were now digging into the meaning behind the hymns, asking these huge, profound questions. What is the self, really? What is the universe made of? And what's the connection between it all?
And the answer they kept coming back to was a concept they called Brahman. Now, this isn't a god with a beard sitting on a cloud. It's more like the divine ground of all being, the single, invisible, creative essence that makes up everything in the cosmos, from the tiniest atom to the biggest galaxy.
And this led to, well, one of the most powerful and radical ideas in human history. It's often summed up in the phrase, Aham Brahmasmi. It means, I am Brahman, or I am divine. It's this incredible claim that the very essence of your individual self is the same stuff that makes up the entire universe.
And then you get the other side of that same coin, Tut Vam Asi, which means you are that. So if I am that divine essence, well then so are you, and so is everything and everyone else. It's just this profound statement of unity and interconnectedness that flows right out of that original Vedic idea we talked about.
So, once you have this really strong trunk of Upanishadic thought, what happens? The tree just starts to explode with countless new branches. This was a time of unbelievable intellectual and spiritual energy, giving rise to all these different schools of philosophy.
This timeline kind of gives you a bird's eye view. You see the Vedic school starting to form way back around 1500 BCE. Then, around 700 BCE, you get that deep philosophical dive with the Upanishads. And then, bam, around 500 BCE, there's this explosion of new thinkers, including two guys who would literally change the world, the Buddha and Mahavira. And this is a really crucial point. These new branches didn't all grow the same way. You basically had two main paths. Some schools, like Vedanta and Yoga, kept building on that Vedic and Upanishadic foundation. But other schools, like Buddhism, actually challenged the authority of the Vedas and set out to create entirely new systems of thought.
And the Buddha is probably the most famous example of someone who forged a new path. He was born a prince named Siddhartha Gautama, but his incredible insights into the nature of suffering and reality created a major new branch on this tree of Indian thought, a branch that would eventually spread all across the globe.
So we've gone from the roots to the trunk to all these diverse branches. But what's the point of it all? What's the fruit of this incredible tree? Well, it turns out it's not a neat set of beliefs or dogmas. It's something way more powerful than that.
And this is where it gets really interesting. The real fruit of this entire tradition is a culture of inquiry. The heroes in these stories aren't warriors with swords, they're questioners with brilliant minds. Their goal was never to find a simple, comfortable answer, but to have the guts to ask the deepest, most difficult questions they could think of.
I mean, just listen to this. There's a story about a young boy named Nachiketa. He literally goes to the land of the dead and demands that Yama, the god of death himself, tell him the ultimate secret. What happens after we die? I mean, that's the level of fearless curiosity we're talking about here.
And it wasn't just young boys asking these questions, not by a long shot. You have this incredible figure, Gargi, a brilliant female scholar who stood up in a public debate and challenged the most famous sage of her time. She grilled him with question after question about the very fabric of reality. Her story just goes to show that in this tradition, a powerful question was worth more than a powerful person.
When you boil it all down, this entire intellectual and spiritual heritage, from the Vedas all the way to the Buddha, was built on the power of a really good question. It suggests that true knowledge isn't about having all the answers, but about never losing our own fearless curiosity. Which, I think, leaves us with one final thought. What's your great question?